enjoyed our last meeting that we had, and it's always just really interesting to chat with the different individuals, the different leaders across these organizations when they're kind of taking off the presenter hat and you're just having a discussion. Just it's it's nice. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Brilliant stuff. Yeah, like as you said, standard thing in terms of the icebreaker. It's about, I'll introduce it beyond compliance checkboxes and sort of the financial risks of global e-invoicing. But as last time, Dan, if the conversation is going in a way you got happy with and you want to chip in, just feel free to chip in and add, sort of add to the narrative. If anything, don't wait for me to have to come to you each time. And I know last time you didn't, and that was great. That was really helpful, and it really helped the attendees as well sort of feel settled.
Perfect. Yeah, I will know that.
Fabulous. So we've got about 10 minutes, so enough time to have a coffee or a cup of tea or whatever you need to, and then
I do think I will get a coffee refill here for this. And I saw that we had is it one of the CFOs from GE Vernova was added.
Yeah, he was the later to call yesterday. Yeah, and he's super keen, so he'll be here. So you should have a really good group of sort of 5 executives in that session ready to chat. So he was actually here. He actually joined the session at 3:30 our time, and we were like, "What? He loves it already." Joining the link so early, but yeah, all good.
I like it. He was ready to go. Yeah, I'm gonna try to take a quick look here after I get my refill on the coffee. I had about 2 years ago, before the acquisition of Pagero had fully been integrated with TR, I was supporting a few different TR reps with GE Vernova, and I was presenting to their executive teams globally. So I think we did 3 different sessions with like 30 senior executives across the globe. So I was going to see if he might have been on that where I had connected them previously. I'll do a little look at that. But no, this should be good. So I will be ready to go here in the next 9 minutes, and we'll look forward to it.
Fantastic, Dan. Well, see you in about 9 minutes.
See you soon. David, thought I'd just let you know, one of the attendees isn't able to join until 20 minutes past, and that's Rudolf Wagner from Siemens.
Right, you are. Brilliant. I'll make note of that, thanks.
Did you hear that, Dan? Cool. All good. But he'll still be here. He's just got things to wrap up, as they all do. But yeah, should be good. Right, team, we've got one in the room. We are actively chasing. We've heard from a few delegates. They are just en route. So when we get about 3 people in, we'll start the session. But I'll keep you guys updated.
No worries. Thanks, Alex.
Cool. Right, we've got a couple in. What I'm going to do is, I don't want to lose these 2, so what I'm going to do is I'll let them in. If you could just stall a little bit longer on your intro, David, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And then push it through. Are you guys ready? All sorts.
Go for it.
Perfect. Have a great session.
Recording in progress.
Hi, Noah.
Hello, good afternoon or good morning.
How you doing? Pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much. We're just waiting for a couple more to join and to have
Okay.
cameras on and mics on just to ensure that we get everybody in the room. Everyone's nice and set up and ready to go. So just give us a couple of seconds here. I know Rahul's just in the background, probably wrestling with a mic or wrestling with a camera, as is always the way when it comes to a Zoom meeting, isn't it? Especially when you switch platforms as well.
Yeah,
There we go. There's Rahul there. How you doing, Rahul? You good?
Hey everyone.
Fantastic. I'd like sister to know we're just waiting on a couple to join and do mics and cameras and make sure their tech is all working, and then we can get going with our wonderful roundtable. Okay. Fantastic. I think there we go. Yep. Just waiting for a couple more to join. There we go. There's a couple more joining in here, which is great. They will appear as if by magic, which is I do like. And here we go. There we go. Fantastic. More and more people joining, which is what we want. Fantastic. Right. So what we're going to do, we'll get going with our Expanse Connect virtual roundtable, which is what you've joined today. So thank you so much. We're here to talk with our good friends over there at Thomson Reuters about the idea of beyond compliance checkboxes, navigating that hidden operational and financial risk of global e-invoicing. Okay, so you are here because you are our industry experts. Okay, so don't be surprised at that. You're here to talk about how real-time tax reporting, mandatory e-invoicing is being implemented across jurisdictions, but it's being seen as a differentiator, as an opportunity rather than a challenge and a problem. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is those challenges that you're all facing and how you're overcoming them, and the solutions and the opportunity for you to talk with your peers about some things that you maybe can't talk to your teams about, because we're in a nice, safe space here and we can open up a little bit more about the challenges that we're facing. So like I said, we've got lots and lots of topics to get through, questions to get through as well. I want you guys to be curious and to ask questions of yourself and to raise topics as well. We'll do some introductions to get us going as well, so we can all ensure that we're all on the right page. You were all sent a icebreaker question. It was either going to be who would you like to have dinner with, alive or no longer with us, and what would you like to tick off your bucket list? So why don't I start us off? My name's David. I'm going to be your moderator today. Hopefully you won't hear too much from me, because I want to hear from you lot out there. In terms of my icebreaker, I'll choose the bucket list one. I want to climb all the peaks in Europe before I'm 50. Unfortunately, I don't know, I'm looking at a clock there. I don't have much time left before I get to 50 to actually achieve that bucket list. But hey ho, there we go. Why don't we head over to Noah? Noah, over at Honeywell. Noah, welcome to our session today. Maybe a little bit about yourself, why you've joined the session as well, and an answer to your icebreaker.
yes, absolutely. So Noah Navarro, 20 years of experience, mostly with heavy manufacturing companies like Honeywell, GE, Johnson & Johnson, Thermo Fisher. I was interested when they reached out to me and mentioned that you were going to talk about AI. I'm actually right now in a conference, and all we did was talk about AI. We have people, this is the IMA, which is like certified management accountants, which is significantly going to be impacted by AI. So it was great to hear different opinions from different industries, and then definitely a lot of anxiety and a lot of opportunity. And I joined just because I wanted to learn and benchmark and understand what other companies are doing.
Fantastic. No, yeah, and that's a really good point. Sort of benchmarking what everyone else is doing and where you sort of land on that journey. What about an answer to maybe an icebreaker question? Either who you want to have dinner with, alive or no longer with us, or maybe something you can tick off your bucket list.
Oh, I would definitely love to have dinner with Obama. Um, Obama has been somebody who is super smart, in my opinion, and would like to ask him a bunch of questions and learn so much from him, especially now that he's no president. And he's probably has a lot of opinions, so I would love to listen to what he has to say.
Yeah, I'm sure he's got a lot of opinions on what's currently going on as well. But thank you, Noah. That's fantastic stuff. Christina, welcome to our session today. We're just going to go around the room and do some introductions. I'll leave you till after Rahul, maybe, not just to chuck you right in at the deep end. Rahul, welcome over there at Nobilis. Maybe introduce yourself, what you hope to get from the roundtable, and maybe an answer to your icebreaker.
Yeah. So my name is Rahul Sprapper. I lead the finance transformation team, part of the global business services at Novelis. For those of you who don't know what Novelis does or are, we're a global company. We basically remanufacture aluminum, and we control a huge portion of the world's market in that space. So a lot of the big clients that you might have known while using it is Coca-Cola. A lot of our products are used for that. So that's a big thing where it's one of those things where you start thinking about how does that come about. It's because of Novelis aluminum. So that's kind of cool thing. And why did I join this? As Noah said, AI has been a big part, and also we are a global company. E-invoicing has been becoming a pretty big deal, especially in Europe. And I know Brazil just has introduced some legislation with e-invoicing and all the headaches and interesting aspects that goes with e-invoicing. So I'm kind of curious how other organizations are dealing with it. As you know, especially it's one of those new things, but there's a lot of nuances how regulations play a role in that. As far as an icebreaker, bucket list item, I would say Northern Lights. I would want to experience that. As to why, it's just one of those things where it's something magical, where it, especially growing up on the south side of US, I don't see it. So would want to, go to Alaska or even, somewhere in Europe to check that out.
I can recommend Northern Scotland, Rahul, if you want to go anywhere to go and see the Northern Lights. They are fabulous there. Thank you, and welcome to our roundtable. Brilliant stuff. And Christina, thank you so much for joining us from Workaday there. We're here to introduce ourselves, a little bit about yourself, maybe a reason why you've joined the roundtable, and as you just heard there from Rahul, an answer to an icebreaker question, either who you'd like to have dinner with or what you'd like to tick off that bucket list.
There. Okay. I'm Christina. I lead our finance transformation, data and reporting insights around AI for Workday. We also, I'm interested to hear kind of what peers are doing on the e-invoicing side as well as agentic side. We just kind of wrapped up a few countries as well in that, but we have proprietary systems, so we were able to move a little bit more rapidly on that. Bucket list items. Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, dinner, I'm a huge fan of, I like Adele. I feel like we're like matched in heaven. She can be my friend. Bucket list, probably Antarctica. I love, that's definitely on my bucket list map as well. But
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Dinner with Adele, that would be lovely, wouldn't it? Yeah, well, that's a great shout. And welcome, Christina. And I'm going to bring in Dan here. Dan, thank you so much for bringing us together from Thomson Reuters. Dan, maybe a little bit about yourself, your role, an answer to your icebreaker, obviously, and where you think our conversation might be heading today based on what we've heard already.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. That Adele one caught me off guard, and it immediately brought me
Everyone
back
always goes
to
with the I'm sorry, no offense though. Like,
no,
I'm looking to have a good dinner. Yeah,
I
that's fair.
mean, I would sing most of my time at that dinner, but that is fantastic. No, I appreciate it. So yes, my name is Dan Morgan. I lead our product sales specialist team here at Thomson Reuters, focused on the indirect tax and our Pagero e-invoicing solutions. I joined Thomson Reuters through the acquisition of Pagero, and so I was with Pagero previously. My time before Pagero was spent in the order to cash automation space, so working on digital transformation of documents between suppliers and retailers and transportation companies the alike. So been in this this compliance world of digital document exchange for a long time, but really looking forward to the discussion here today, touching on the icebreaker side. Now after this shout out, I can't go with the politician now. I need to be careful on what I go with. I was going to say Jeff Bezos, which for many it's probably an easy jump to as well. But I think that one of the things that we all saw with Amazon and now with what he's jumping back into around the AI space and streamlining manufacturing processes and things like that is he's always thinking about scale. And when he's doing things, he's looking at the details and looking at a few more than just a couple steps down the line. He's really trying to look further into the future with it. So I think that I'd be very curious to chat with him and hear about his circle of mentors that he goes to as well, and just how he takes that feedback and detail from others to strengthen his vision. So be very curious to meet with him. I'm also going to jump in with an answer on the icebreaker for the bucket list side. And mine, I have 4 kids. I've got a 12-year-old daughter who thinks that she's 23. I've got a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 4-year-old sons. So three sons. And something that I would really love to do before they are out of the house is take each of them. If my wife wants to come too, that's great, but to get some time one-on-one with them to do some life travel memory. And whether that's we're going out to see some fjords, or we're going out to see some waterfalls, or we're going to go out to the Northern Lights scenario as discussed earlier, but just to have that time with one kid and go and do something before they're out of the house that they can hold on to for memory in life, I think would be really neat to try to do. So, but yeah, so that would be a bucket list item for me, and it's kind of a four tagger, because you got to hit all 4, otherwise you're in trouble. But when it comes to the discussion today, yeah, hearing some of the input from the group here, AI is something that we're all living in right now, and trying to figure out how do you leverage that as a tool to increase your efficiency. What kind of risks do we see, not only in our roles and in our teams, and just from a compliance factor. There's all sorts of layers to the AI aspect. I think that there's certainly can be some discussion around that, and I think that in general, a lot of the preface of the e-invoicing side, which again is where I come from, it's just it's a constant wave of change. Not only is it new countries that are coming out with things, existing countries have changes that occur as well. It's just a living, breathing environment that we are in. So having some different discussions around that as well. But I'm just excited to be here. I'm excited to chat and do a little bit of brainstorming and hear what everybody's working on, and share some thoughts from this end as well. But appreciate the time from everyone today.
Yeah, Dan, thank you so much. Yeah, it is about using our time valuably today. So, we've got questions, we've got themes, we've got things we'll be popping in the chat, and I'll be asking some of those questions, but feel free to chip in where you need to. Wave at me. I'll make sure I get round to you so you can share your experiences. We're joined by Raman as well from GE Vernova. Raman, welcome to our session today. We've just done a round of introductions. Maybe you could introduce yourself and share a little bit about why you joined the roundtable before we start.
Yeah, but so before I get started with my introduction, I owe a big apology to you and to the audience and the rest of the participants here. Unfortunately, my review internally here as part of our quarterly operating review, it ran over significantly where unfortunately I got reviewed. So it took a lot of time for me to get out of the meeting. Had it not been my review, I would have easily got out. So sincere apologies from my side, and thank you for bearing with me for my delay. And myself, I'm Raman Nagarajan, and I've been with the GE for the past 25 years between different functions of diversified functions of controllership, financial systems, and process reengineering, and to FP&A, commercial finance, and you name it. I truly enjoyed my run with the company so far for the past 25 years. And I'm the CFO of one of the business units of GE Vernova. It's called Grid Software, and Grid Software is a transmission and distribution software business of electric utility, where it controls electricity supply through transmission and distribution lines. And what I want to gain and contribute to this group of audience today is I want to learn from, first of all, what others are actually thinking about on the topics that we are discussing today, particularly on AI, and most importantly, also on cost productivity as well. And then I also want to contribute in those areas as I'm doing a ton of work in those areas in our company, and as well as and privately as well with some of the other players. So I'm very curious on those two areas particularly, and other areas I'm very curious to learn as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so we'll start off maybe thinking around the biggest challenges that you and your teams are facing when we think about, real-time tax reporting, the expansion of global e-invoicing mandates, and the difference in locales and the difference in sort of locations and how that affects your teams. What's the biggest challenge you are all facing when you come to preparing your teams and your organizations to being ready for that real-time compliance, that digital tax mandate? And I'll pop that in the chat. And maybe Noah, we can start with yourself over at Honeywell. What's the challenge that you guys are encountering, and how are you going about solving that?
So I don't know because it's handled by shared services. So they have a lot of compliance and they have a lot of smart people. They are so smart that I don't need to worry about it. So I really don't have an opinion on that or any exposure.
That's great to hear. No, you've got smart people looking after it for yourself as well, which is great. Christina, what about yourself over at Workdays? Is there a particular challenge when it comes to that real-time tax reporting that is kind of spectering over you?
Absolutely. I think ultimately is having a good plan of attack, alignment within impacted teams. That's always the biggest one. We recently really doubled down on our transformation adoption teams, right? And change management, especially with what we're trying to accomplish pretty aggressively. So change management is a big one, is once we actually deploy a solution, once we actually start to gain alignment, how are we actually going to track adoption and ensure that we have everything we need to successfully deploy. So
do you find, Christina, that with the change management is one of the challenges, that idea of change fatigue, that teams can sort of feel quite fatigued by another change, another thing that's coming in, and how that's handled?
Absolutely. I mean, I think every company today, even counterparts outside of our companies, have gone through organizational changes, just different avenues of change, right? Our focus mainly is not so much around change fatigue, it's mostly around adoption, right? Sometimes what you deploy might change next year, or FY 27 might be a different focus. But the adoption piece is one of the big things, whether it's agentic AI, whether it's a new mandate, we need to ensure that the adoption takes place.
Thanks, Christina. Noah, if I just head back to you over at Honeywell, you mentioned that it's taken care of, and it's not necessarily something that you'd have to worry about too much. Is it something that you're involved with, and they share and they're transparent with the processes, so you are fully sort of cognizant of what's going on, or is it something that that they don't necessarily sort of share out?
So we do look at working capital and compliance. That's absolutely critical. However, because I'm more on the division performance, I don't look into it. I don't have as much weight in. There is a lot of processes around, and there is a lot of center of excellence. So not something that I'm responsible for. Definitely, I need to know, but I'm waiting a little bit for this wave of AR to settle to see how that's really going to impact me. As I mentioned, I'm in a conference right now, and we're talking a lot about AI. And one of the questions that I asked in one of the forums is, what's AI versus process automation? Through the finance, we started with process automation, and all Fortune 500 got into that wave. And it seems now there is another wave, and I'm just trying to understand, what's the difference. And as I mentioned, there's going to be pillars and groups of people that are going to have that depth. For me, I'm more on the operational business aspect of finance.
Thank you, Noah. It's just interesting to hear how prominent it is in terms of their sharing of it. We're joined by Rudolf over at Siemens as well. Rudolf, thank you so much for joining us. We're just going around the room at the moment, talking around the challenges that people are facing when preparing for, good big finance operations, big changes when it comes to compliance and digital tax mandates. I'll head to you in just a bit. I'll go to Raman first over at GE Vernova. I'll get you time to settle in, okay? And Raman, when it comes to those challenges, where are you sort of landing with that?
I just want to make sure I heard you correct, that it was a technology problem here, fortunately, on my side. And were you talking about tax compliance and digital security? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, the idea of real-time tax reporting, global e-invoicing mandates. What are the challenges your teams are facing when trying to prepare them for it?
Yeah, in all transparency, if I say this correctly, we are actually struggling very hard on the invoicing piece of that. And any change in terms of compliance with the local invoicing regulations, such as e-invoicing in France and other countries, it does take exorbitant amount of time to really implement from one country to another country. So we are struggling hard. But having said that, what we are looking at is, let's just understand the regulatory requirements that we will need to comply with. That's the knowledge aspect of that we will have to document and comply with. That's unavoidable. That's out of our control. But what we can control is that how we react to it. And the current reaction that we do today is it's kind of very responsive, that is taking a lot of time. And this is where we see a lot of AI opportunities that we can potentially look at. But at the same time, we are not jumping in to do that. So we are continuing the current delayed path for a temporary time so that we can be staying compliant. But we're doing three things actually from an AI perspective. So one, we are cleaning up and fixing our data infrastructure first to begin with. The data infrastructure, we want to make sure that the systems that are dispersed today, they are all brought together from a transactional systems to ultimate data systems. And we are bringing them all together to one place. So that's one thing that we are working on. And two, within that data repository, we are enabling AI as well as part of that. So that it's not a dumb system that is just simply having some data, but rather it should be a smart system where it can have data with intelligence. So that's the second piece that we're working on. The third element that we are also working on is that we are validating through our own cybersecurity teams on what can be done to make sure that these systems are really solid proof systems where we will not get into any cybersecurity issues. So we are clearing that as well before we start to embed the AI platform or tools into our existing applications. So bottom line, we are preparing our infrastructure and foundational layer to make sure that we are ready for AI. Once that is done, this take about probably about 6 to 9 months approximately from a timing perspective. Then thereafter, we are going to be working on a combination of agentic AIs that we will build where multiple agents can work together in terms of not just only reading the external tax and other compliance reporting requirements, invoicing requirements that we have got, but also to translate that into what does that mean in terms of our own internal processes that needs to modify and also enable our systems to produce automatically a compliant invoicing system as well. We are not there yet. And my feeling is that after 6 to 9 months of the foundational work, that will take about additional 12 months just to get the initial fixings right. Then thereafter, it will keep evolving for the next 24 months. So we are really talking about here roughly about 30 to 36 months time frame.
And it's, I suppose, key that you've got those timeframes in mind already. So you are working to something measurable rather than sort of sticking a finger in there and hoping for the best. So we'll bring in Rudolf. Rudolf over at Siemens. We've done some introductions, everyone around the room, and maybe a little bit about yourself, and then something you could sort of share when it comes to the challenges when we come to real-time tax reporting.
Yeah, I'm late to the party, so everybody knows each other. Yeah, Rudolf Wagner, Head of Data and AI for Siemens Mobility Americas. I come actually out of the finance world. I was down the CFO path, or actually up the CFO path. And at one point, one of my passions is automation, is everything around the automation part. And I had the opportunity to join this about 2.5, 3 years ago. And yeah, that was so far a wonderful journey. Pretty much anything what Raman, you just said, we have a similar path. David, do you want me to go quickly into that?
Yeah, please. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple of things how we approach AI, and a bit of a structured. Maybe that's very German of me in this case. So we have 3 pillars: process AI, everyday AI, and product AI. Simply for focusing, because audiences, everybody loves to talk about AI, and I'm not talking about this audience here. I'm talking about the audience I have within my company. So whenever you work in a certain area, if you simplify, if it's a product, if it's an AI towards a customer-facing project, any kind of thing, maybe something we sell, it's product AI. Has to have different types of setups. Everyday AI is everybody what we know: ChatGPT, Gemini, these kind of things. Our internal Siemens has an internal Siemens GPT service. Copilot, yeah. To me, by the way, this is where everybody is visible, but to me, the biggest untapped potential, and I think that's what I heard from Raman as well, didn't miss the other ones, is the process AI. So simplified, how do we structure ourselves around optimized processes? And underneath that is, I mean, data foundations. Don't have to repeat this. Data foundations is one of the key ingredients. I just had a meeting this morning where somebody's quoted specifically the head of engineering said in one of the meetings that, who owns my data? But that tells you essentially what the issue is. People think data is somewhere stored somewhere, and it's, well, I didn't do that. No, of course. So it's the structure, the community which needs to be rebuilt into, hey, you own this data. The second ingredient, what we also look at from an AI perspective is, and that's what my group is currently focusing on. The timelines I'll share at the end. So if you think about it, we have a machine learning operations, we have Gen AI, and then we have agentic systems. They're all 3 different solutions around AI which solve different types of problems. We do large-scale manufacturing. We have about 4,000 or 5,000 employees here in the US, concretely manufacture trains. And we have a very large-scale operations for this here within the US, so it's not just assembly. So the full end-to-end value chain sits with us. Gen AI doesn't help you in a manufacturing plant. It's cool, it's nice, but it doesn't help you. Agentic systems do help, but via the process side. So it's machine learning. So we have vast amount of data available, and harnessing this part, structuring it, and then ultimately applying this is essentially right now one of our business cases we have. And we should have this ready within, my initial phase is proposal by end of the summer. And the rollout fully is within about 6 months. I want to be precise because I've heard different timeframes, Raman, from you. This is the beginning, not the end for us. So when I say, oh, within 6 months we deploy it, it doesn't mean that it's now everything's perfect and the project is finished. I think that's where the start is. for Gen AI, it's the browsability for a lot of the white collar workers. But the main focus for me is the agentic systems. I don't want to eat up too much time, but that is to me where my heart beats. Agentic systems is essentially, to a large degree, to me, the a process optimization on steroids. And the data foundation as well as process foundations is really the key ingredient.
Rudolf, thank you. It's an interesting approach when it comes to those challenges and how you could potentially be circumnavigating them as well. Rahul, over at Novellus then, is it something similar from what we're hearing in terms of timeframes, in terms of the challenges that you actually are going to be encountering?
Yeah, pretty much. But I think the approach that we've been taking is, at least I keep asking myself, what is our core competency? We're a manufacturing company. We did, once AI started getting, okay, the CFO is on Wall Street Journal talking about AI, we're implementing AI, but in the background, it's like, hey, what's really happening in AI within the organization? Because we're not doing much, as far as I can tell. Are we building something internally, or are we, make buy decision going through that process? For a lot of this stuff, as we've been going and deep diving into AI solutions on the product side of things, we're basically saying, hey, we don't have the know-how. So we've been doing a lot of different partnerships, especially on the e-invoicing side of things. We're in Germany, we're in a lot of the European countries, and especially in Germany, where it's going to go live in the next 6 months, unless that changes again. There's a lot of things that, as a manufacturing company, we don't have the people or the bandwidth to go through and understand every aspect of that. So we're trying to figure out who are the right partners for those kind of things, and especially now in Brazil too, where they're introducing different mandates, and some of these countries don't mess around. I mean, there have been cases where if you do something wrong, they will put you in jail. So you don't want to mess around, especially if your core competency is not tech and it's manufacturing. We're making sure that we understand the regulation, one, and two, we understand our capability to meet those regulation and future regulation. And we're doing that through going through our due diligence, working with our cybersecurity teams, and all of that stuff. As far as what has been the process for us internally, we do work with our BPO partner quite a bit to guide us, because they do have a bandwidth of different resources that they can leverage to tell us, hey, this is the solution that organizations are looking at, and this is how they are improving their process within AR cash applications, where right now it's a very manual process, implementing a specific solution to introduce AI and figure that out. But part of that process, we always include our cybersecurity team, because even though we're leveraging a partner, we are making sure that, one, we understand how these tools work, two, that we can get our cybersecurity team to sign off on this implementation if we move forward. And one of the things that we've been finding out as we go through this learning adventure with AI and different things is a lot of these solutions that actually work and do a good job have multiple LLM models in place on the background. While if you were to build something like that, where a lot of organizations, especially Novellus, we do have limitations where we only want to use, Gemini or OpenAI or specific big ones, versus some of these solutions are harnessing the power of, a LLM model that's specific to a transaction within the agentic solution. So we're making sure that we understand that and what are the pros and cons of that LLM models within the product side of things, and if there's any harm in sensitive data potentially getting away from us. So there's just been a lot of on understanding what is going on within their environment, and to making sure that this is the right tool for us. And as we're implementing different solutions, first one that we implemented was, as far as AI is concerned, was on the AP side of things, payment duplication verification system, where we have 9 different ERP systems across just North America and Europe. And as you can imagine, the complexities of that. And there have been multiple instances where the invoices get routed through multiple channels, and it's kind of hard to capture those duplicates because of multiple ERP systems. So AI has been doing a really good job for us to even, the low-hanging fruit, I would say, to say, hey, this potential duplicate, let's go do something about it, not wait 6 months. So that's an example of AI where we incorporated early on, and it's been paying off.
Well, thank you. Yes, that's good. Sorry, go for it.
Yeah, just quick question maybe for the group here, just from some of these points that are being brought up. We were talking both about the e-invoicing side and then also about AI. In general, from e-invoicing globally, it's a compliance-driven event. We've got these countries that are rolling out mandates. At one end, I'll have conversations with companies where they're saying, yeah, we know this mandate is coming up for AR, AP, et cetera. We've got business complexity, and we need to look at how many invoices we do and what are the chargeback, penalties if we don't do this. Many of the scenarios, it ends up being, well, you just aren't going to have your invoices get paid by your customers there. There becomes a cash, issue and cash flow issue in times for non-compliance there. But where I'm going with it is, being a compliance-driven activity, they've got, the jurisdiction's going to put out a timeline, and they really don't care what your business's timeline is for figuring out the process and handling the transformation there. They just are putting a stake in the ground and letting you know that this is what's coming. Yes, that stake may move, but they put that stake in the ground. There's a compliance factor there. And then with AI, it's more of this AI race maybe that I think we're seeing, as well as just this exponential capability growth where businesses are looking to take advantage of that and build upon that. Where I'm going with this is, I'm curious about how each of you have seen, what are each of you seeing in the business, and how that transformation, whether it's in compliance drive with global e-invoicing, or it's the AI focusing growth there, how are the businesses handling that change for that specific timeline? Is it a separate path? Is it a separate function that gets created to address it because it's the compliance base, or with AI because it's the priority for that growth there? And talking about that, like, how is the business handling that different than other change events that have come up in the past, or how are you seeing this be different?
I can go first if you want.
Yeah, great.
Sure. Look, I think these two they may be looking like they are connected, but if we double click, but they are not connected. The reason being is that the compliance and to any regulation or change and the timelines that they provide, usually the timelines are very broad, and it's not like, they are telling you that they are getting done in the next 3 months. No, it doesn't happen like that. They give ample notice to people or the businesses that you should be compliant. So there is a separate track that we accomplish that in today's world, at least in our infrastructure that we have today. We don't have AI maturity, and I'm not willing to invest in more AI until and unless we have our data and AI platform ready as a combined. That's the foundational piece, because otherwise the amount of money that we will be spending on tokens, thinking that we will be able to use AI to really automate our e-invoicing process, I will probably dreaming in a land where I won't be able to deliver, and I will become non-compliant, and my cost would exceedingly increase, day by day. We don't want to do that. So what we want to do, until we have established a data and AI platform maturity, we are going to continue the current path of standard business operations of compliance using the conventional method of incorporating the change control process. Because that's a proven, even though it is delayed, it is taking time, it costs money, but still it is making you compliant, definitely for sure. And we want to make sure that we are under control first. Once we incorporate that as a standard process, then we can either parallelly or later, once we achieve the AI foundational capability and maturity, then we can keep evolving which one will come in first and which one will come in next. Because for me, in my business, the e-invoicing is least of the problems. I have problems to go solve in terms of how do we deliver code using AI in the form of research and development and the services delivery function. Thereby, I can reduce the cost of goods sold as well as in my research and development spend. And how do I generate codes to customers without having to use a commercial deal desk, and so that I can actually automate the process. Once we do all those things as a priority, then the e-invoicing and compliance piece can come into place, because that costs very less money for us in terms of implementing it. So that's how we would prioritize based on where I stand. Again, it need not be applicable to other businesses. I'm talking more from the context of my business. Hope that's helpful.
Very helpful. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll actually take want to follow up to what Raman said. Very similar for Siemens. Again, I come from both directions. AI is not the first step of the solution. It's the last step. It's first follow on the compliance, the existing processes. If you rely on AI to solve your problem today, you may end at the end of the notice period, you may end up with a non-compliant product, non-compliant output. So you go the safe route. And the best way we've seen it, at least at Siemens, and again, this probably applies to others, you do apply AI along the way, but as long as you're not 100% sure, close to 100%, it doesn't have to be perfect 100%. It comes down to what type of tax compliance. You got to be very close on that. But other things in that regards is you do apply it to accelerate the process. But it's first compliance and existing process, AI second. Today, this may change in 6 or 12 months when large language models become completely reliable, or not completely, but much more reliable than today.
So, Rudolf, I actually was going to ask you about your 3 pillars, and you kind of elaborated just right now. You mentioned that you are farther ahead on one of them. What is your take on when are you making progress on the 3 of them, or 2 are in the back burner and you're just focusing on one? What is the prioritization that you guys are doing?
Yeah, I had mentioned 2, 3 pillars, and I drew it actually on paper. I was like, I think this is the everyday process AI and product AI, or are you talking about the Gen AI machine learning?
No, the everyday, the process, the everyday, and the customers. Yeah. Because from my perspective, you mentioned it very well. Compliance is a critical one, but customers is also one that you probably want to pursue immediately, but perhaps is one of the most difficult ones. So yes. I'm curious to know, are you making progress to each of those pillars, or are you focusing on one, and kind of why?
Very good question. So first and foremost, progress is obviously not linear at all. Not linear. It may appear, or we expect it, we hope so sometimes. So we work on all 3 of them. The main focus for me personally, for my group, for the organization is process AI and product AI. Everyday AI is the mothership of Siemens, does take care of this. I will plainly admit this. We sit on a Siemens GPT, so they essentially build a localized, completely contained, and it has, I think, 23 models to choose from. It is very important that one of the regulations we have for this is the person cannot afterwards, let's say a tax specialist puts it into Siemens GPT, whatever model, and comes out incorrect data. To us, very simple, the person who submits it is ultimately responsible. If they chose to go the everyday AI, today it's not reliable. It is to speed up your everyday stuff, your emails, your facilitating of meetings, these kind of things, slides internal. The moment it goes external for tax compliance purposes, not reliable. The one you just talked about, product AI, is, I believe, if you look at it and measure it externally, the least progressed one, because it's the most difficult. The moment you sell something, you have to get to very close to 100% reliability. And actually, the surprising part is we have often data issues. It's customer data issues. But overall, like I said, one of the key ingredients from my side was the process AI, because I can control almost everything. Again, control with quotation marks. It's everything within Siemens, within our organization. So you can call up the relevant stakeholders, the executives, and say, we have an issue here. We can, in order to roll this out.
Thank you.
Yeah. Christina, I'm interested to hear your take on where we are with this in terms of Workday, in terms of the teams you're sort of leading over there. Well, you might be on mute there, Christina. Sorry.
Which path? I think we have two different kind of segues here. We have the e-invoice inside of the house, and then also kind of just seems like data culture, data strategy, how it feeds into AI. That's why I was on mute. And hear my dogs. I think everyone's kind of in the same boat, swimming to the same island, just different approaches. I think it really matters based on industry, what type of compliance you have to deal with. We get a lot of different compliance sides of the house, right? From SOX to international compliance, really just for that e-invoice inside really just depends on the country. And what solutions we have in place today. But I will say, when we look at any of those type of mandates, we do look at our process as it is today, and how can we reinvent that process, and how can we reinvent that process through automation or whatever type of tech stack we have today. From same thing, we almost have the same type of pillars to product, agentic, and our P&T also wants to know, whatever we create in the finance realm, can we sell it? So that's also, a type of mindset when we have to roll out any type of new process or operational. Can we do it, and then can we sell it? So we're always kind of customer zero with any type of optimization we do, especially as we kind of work through all three of those pillars as well. But typically we look at workflows, repetitive tasks with any type of process. And then with that, how do we build upon it? How do we work with the SOX team to give that stamp of approval, and then compliance? And then the second side of that piece too, how do we also tackle anything, is risk. We want to understand the risk level. Every country from an e-invoice inside of the house, we look at it from a risk, and then from there we decide, okay, let's start here because it's the biggest risk, biggest fines, we only have 6 months to deploy something. What does that look like from a runway? So we start with the analysis on all of the countries, timelines, things like that. And then we start from the top. And then we also meet into the middle with quick wins.
Thanks, Christina. Dan, to bring you back into the conversation, is what you're hearing resonating with what you're seeing in the wider space with organizations that you're working with currently?
I would say yes. And I think that in one of the comments earlier, Ramon, I think, talking just more about getting that clean data first and cleaning up that data. It's just so paramount and what needs to be addressed. And many of the different customers that we speak with on a large global scale, it may be multiple businesses within one country, and each of those businesses may be on a separate ERP in that country. And when they're looking at trying to be, again, compliance first, but also look at how do we standardize this process so that as they're cleaning up the data, they're doing different ERP migrations, they want to be looking at a standard look for that. it's still having that clean data first, is clean data in, clean data out. I think that everybody is talking about AI, and I think that this lens, that Rudolf had brought up about how do you separate it out into that process, that everyday and that product customer facing side. I think that's it's well stated, and it's a great lens that can be spoken to in, because we do see, I think, many organizations that are trying to figure out how to inject the business with AI, and even around the global e-invoicing side, how do we inject it with AI? There's not that clarity of what are we injecting and with what aspect to it, to say, well, I'm just going to start running Claude, this vibe coding that I'm doing in Claude that is helping me figure out where I want to, handle an internal process. That's not something that you're going to package and start pushing out externally. And it's this pause that needs to be done to get that clarity that's being spoken about from this team, and to say, what are we doing? We can't keep this all linear. We can't just sprint and push this. We need to look at where we're taking this from point A to B and see. And getting to C does not mean that's the end. That could very well be the beginning that was talked about earlier. So I think that is, it's one of the reasons why I love getting onto these calls, to hear the different lens that everyone is working in, and it's refreshing from many of the other conversations that I might be on that are one-on-one, where they're still just looking for where I can push this. And it's AI, I'm very convinced is an integral part of business. We need to be really leaning into it, but we need to lean into it the right way, and just blitzing does not get us where we need to go. But yeah, I getting a bit long-winded here, but yes, very much so resonating with what we're seeing. But I really like the clarity that I'm hearing from the team here, and I think that these lenses are very much so appropriate and useful for some other conversations that I've recently had, and I wish I could have relayed some of those at that time too.
And we've come down the narrative of AI and automation, and how it can impact sort of this space, and it helps in terms of looking at a second theme, really, about reducing cost and complexity, right? So we're always thinking about reducing cost and reducing complexity, and how we measure the true cost of what we're doing, and how we ensure that there's an ROI on it, but also, is it just going to be through AI and automation, and what role could that be playing in a longer term strategy? So what I'll do is I'll pop that into the chat there. There's a couple of questions, but maybe I'm more interested, and when we start with Rahul over at Novellus, is sort of, how are you measuring that true cost of your invoice finance operations today, and is it going to be solved through just AI and automation, and what role do you see that in the longer term strategy as the functions and the tools develop?
Yeah, kind of going back to theme one, as what everybody else said, process, starting with the process and data. And I kind of mentioned before that how many different ERP systems we have. And, one of the common themes that has been a struggle is how siloed we are as an organization in some instances. And how do you break through those silos to make sure that we have a consistent process? Having AI, I think Dan put it in a nicer way, but it's really garbage in, garbage out. And that's exactly what it is. And I recently took on the MDM team too, and I cannot tell you how many different issues that we have, because in the sequence of kind of getting to the nitty-gritty of it, how many different steps we have within simple vendor creation or customer creation or material creation, and then you talk about all the different bill of materials and down the chain, and how many chances of errors in data there are because it's so manual. You know, through Excel forms, through all of these manual mechanisms, we're expecting people to be perfect, almost robot-like. That's not the case. So we need to fix that, and we are going through the process of fixing those kind of issues, and then figuring out, okay, once we align, even at the regional level, on a specific process, then we can take on different solutions. Or you're going to have 50 different processes for one region, and then forget about, if you're a global company, you know, every single plant, you know, scope of work is gonna have a deviation, and that's just not ideal for AI or any kind of automation. So yeah, we're kind of taking it, like everybody said, piecemeal, try to figure out and break down those silos.
Is that the measurement of cost but also success there, Rahul? For you? Is it the consistency of process being implemented then across the different sort of areas?
Yeah, because right now, for example, one plant does things different way than the other. So we would need to have potentially one or two sets of different groups to do that work, and then cross-trained. And whenever we cross-train people and add variables, that's you're just, because it's a manual process. It's manual things, you know, multiple people touching something in different ways. You're like anything else, you're just asking for trouble. You have too many hands in the pot. So I look at it, and you know, if you don't fix the underlying process that's involved, you can automate it. It doesn't mean it's going to work. You can say that, hey, you got a quick win, but the bare minimum that you have to do is at least do some kind of mapping in the background. Like I gave example of, you know, duplicate verification check, where I had to go through all the different ERP systems, figure out how they're mapped, and then hard code that into a query so that the daily file or twice a day that we send to the solution as one one template of data that is consistent across the board. But that's something that I was able to just take care of on the back end without touching the ERP system. But again, that's not perfect, but that's an issue with not having things in a consistent manner, simple as payment terms, 50 different ways across the different systems.
Ram, Rudolf, sorry, I could see you were happy with Rahul's comment there. Are you finding it a challenge to measure the cost, the true cost of of invoice operations today? Is it like I said there? Is it something just through implementation of automation and AI? Can you really sort of see the cost being driven down and risk being driven down, or is it something different?
I look at this a little bit different. Maybe it's just the way I heard you, Rahul. I was applauding to it because it's very much similar to pain points. So we're not trying to replace it overnight, but rather, I think one of the core statements we have within our organization at Drive Forward is the AI process has to come to the consumer, not that everybody now has to fit into my mold. And one of the core pillars for that is the data connection layer. So almost all of the invoice processes, which are, we work with a lot of government customers, a lot of individual states, individual counties. So just a lot of municipalities. Every single one of them wants the different file format structuring. It's almost mind-boggling. I've learned this about 10 years ago, and it was one of the most frustrating meetings I've ever walked away with from. Anyway, back to the point. Data layer to us is the key ingredient. The data layer is so we keep every ERP system intact, we connect instead of now forcing. Again, Siemens has almost in every country a dependence and therefore an own ERP system and so forth. And we just looked at the other way around. We didn't say, okay, ERP systems now need to follow us. We're going to grab all the data out of it. And the internal processing around the data itself, that can be done centrally. The output goes back to the ERP system. So we use a data connection layer, Snowflake or Databricks. And that's where so everything is becoming universally through Snowflake. We're currently using Snowflake as a bit of a data lake, but I can tell you in the future, within 6 to 12 months, we're going to switch it to just a connection layer in the end. So again, the core principles of what you want to achieve with automation can be done through the data once you have it collected and standardized, but the output needs to stay localized. That's our take.
Thanks, Rudolf. Yeah, helpful to hear what the take is there. Noah, over at Honeywell, then, what role do you see automation and AI playing in that long-term invoice sort of processing strategy?
From an invoicing perspective, as I mentioned, I don't deal with it. But from a modeling, analytics, which is what Rolf was mentioning as the customer product, I see a lot of benefit. So I'm going to give you an example. Honeywell has a 6-quarter rolling forecast that is automated. It's an Excel. Everything is pulled through Hyperion, and then it allows to see a trend. There is a lot of manual intervention from the analysts to make this make sense. So when you think about it, even though it's intended to be a manual process, it has become time consuming. So the way that I see AI helping us is connecting it to still some of root of words, connecting it to the data source to allow us to understand our customer margin or product margins by customer. We're not being there, but if you ask a lot of people in finance where they see the role of AI involving is to that element in which we can look at margins and then automate a process. We know what good looks like through our Excels. It's just time consuming at this point. In the conference, there were a lot of questions asked as to how are you using AI? And there were about 650 people in the room. And it was more automation than AI, but everybody was craving, can we get those financial models, which right now we don't have. Some people mentioned you can do it with Claude, and then you go into, okay, if I do it with Claude, it's going to be expensive. There is a compliance risk. There's a cybersecurity risk. So as a finance recipient of AI, I would say the last pillar is something that I'm very interested. It's not going to be linear, so I'm trying not to get too excited. I'm optimistic, excited. Hopefully that helps you. And from an e-invoicing, I do not get involved on that one.
Thanks, Noah. Yes, I hope they'll get you. Christina, for yourself then at Workday, when we think about sort of measuring the impact here, but also sort of looking at implementing strategies that won't increase the risk, how are you guys approaching that? Is AI and automation playing a sort of a longer term role in that strategy?
It's a good point. I mean, we have a little bit of different approach of like where we are today, right? We have so many broken upstream business processes. I think last year we took a pretty extreme approach where we just started to lock fields, like period. Like there were teams that had access, and I think, Raul, you were kind of saying that too, where multiple people were going in and changing items. We went through that process where we just aggressively locked it down and only opened it to 2 teams that actually should be having access. And we made that decision to move quicker. And if it broke, it broke and we dealt with it. So that actually helped us a lot, like, to be honest, to actually move a lot quicker. The second piece of that, we went through a whole job skill process upstream of who actually owns what. We aggressively rolled out a data culture federated approach, who owns the data, and period. The gray areas, it goes to a committee. But the biggest thing is I do hear a lot, like the garbage in, garbage out. We also have a data lake, right? We do a lot of gatekeeping when it comes to that. You're always going to have garbage data. Doesn't mean it's bad data. It's how it's used, right? Is the biggest question, because you can have a very risky set of data where, you know, might not be completely clean, but it could be useful to a lot of different teams. As long as it's not driving higher risk executive decisions and things like that. And that's where my team kind of makes those decisions too. Because there's just some areas we're never going to get around to actually improve the process, and it might just be lower risk. Not lower risk, but just not a priority at the time. But I would say, like, where we are today, I think there's just, everyone is moving quick, right? And everyone's trying to do things a lot quickly. I think the biggest takeaway, especially when it comes to reducing cost and things like that, is alignment between your entire company. And that's the hardest thing that I think most companies are trying to get to. And if you have good people leaders in place to really push the initiatives, that we're all trying to get to the same, you know, end goal, but most importantly, like, who's responsible for what. I found it really does save a lot of money at the end of the day, right? And because it's like one team could be going here, and it happened actually to me last week. Like, one team was literally building the same thing that another team was doing. I was like, hold on, I think this team's doing the same thing, right? Like, we just wasted a whole bunch, and that's just roadmap, right? Like, no one talked to this one team on their roadmaps and what they're doing. But in my mind, it's that we're all moving fast, and it's less so about tooling cost and those things, but it's really just internal alignment, and to make sure that the resources that we have today. The second thing of that too is that we're also moving into a different job skill type of scenario, right? We can have finance people building finance agents. We also have bots that do process mining to help alleviate some of those validations between different processes and teams. We've built those bots. But I think ultimately, it's you're going to break things, and, you know, our CEO has said that too. Break it, it's okay, break things, because then we know how to fix it, right? And we started to change that mindset to say, okay, let's just start going and doing things and figuring out what breaks, and that ultimately will fix our processes. But obviously you don't want to do that for, like, big things, but for the most part, we've done it. And now we're actually going through a Salesforce reimplementation with a new lens, as well as how do we build this with a little bit more velocity and just a more scalable solution too. So hopefully that answers your question.
No, it's good. And again, sort of break it, fail at 100%, fail fast. We know that that's sort of, especially quite an important sort of change management tactical tool as well when you're looking at implementation. Raman, for Jeevan over then, we're looking here about sort of the true cost of these operations and doing it without increasing risk. Where do you guys sit with that?
Yeah, so first of all, I don't measure just the invoicing piece, just to be very clear. And what we measure today is the entire code to cash process, from origination of code to until collection of cash. What do we incur today, and how do we save this tomorrow? And we have brought in a lot of process efficiencies over a period of time before the advent of even AI. Now, AI gives us a ton of opportunity. So right now, what we are working on is that we have a measurement in place in terms of what we spend today in terms of the run cost, right? So that's something that we constantly keep focusing on from a productivity standpoint. Having said that, what we are trying to do, both in terms of immediate as well as longer term strategy on this is, we are working on how do we get the parts of the code to cash process, which is how do we get the deal desk process fully automated, thereby the codes can be generated by the salespeople, which we don't have the capability today, because we cannot. It's just because it's not like a standalone selling product you're selling, such as software, but you're also selling a significantly complex professional and advisory services that requires a specific customization for each customer in our line of business that we are in. It could be similar to some other complicated business too. So we wanted to make sure absolutely that how do we really automate the process of from opportunity to quote and then to order. So that's a step number one that we're working on. Parallelly, we are also working on step number two, which is once we win an order, how do we make sure that that gets recorded in the right modules within ERP in terms of either project module or subscription module or what module it is? It has to be booked in the right place with the right details. Again, today we're doing everything manually. Tomorrow, after what we are trying to do with a combination of existing process refinement as well as automation, as well as AI, we want to make sure that we are booking the deals or booking the orders won in the right module with the completeness and accuracy of the orders. Then thereafter, it moves on to the invoicing. The invoicing doesn't happen one day, or one day per deal. It's a recurring invoice system. So then how do we make sure that in a compliant way, complying with the regulations, using a combination of AI as well as the existing process revamping that we are doing? How do we generate automated invoices that can ship invoices without having to have a manual touch point? Then the final piece is on the collections. So we have a large army of third-party provider in terms of collections, and we want to make sure that how do we bring in AI, thereby we can actually have less people, but then accelerate collections. So the goal is to really create automation within the entire value stream from quote until cash collections, thereby the manual involvement is reduced, and thereafter accelerate cash collections as well. That's the ultimate goal that we are all working towards. So that's how we are approaching it from a longer term perspective. And the way that we are also thinking about in terms of, let's not make mindless investments. Let's make investments in the place where we can get tangible investments. And if you talk to any finance team or CFO or FP&A people, you will hear that, the business guys would always tell you, oh, there's going to be a ton of intrinsic and value-adding benefits that you're not even counting it. Well, I want to see real dollars in terms of, if I put the investment in, what is the minimum cost reduction that it can do that can impact my operating profit or EBITDA numbers, thereby I can actually see it. All the other value-adding intrinsic benefits, I can count it later on after I finish counting the EBITDA numbers first with the cost reductions. That's a basic guideline that we provided. And we also said, if you're going to be having a runtime cost and one-time cost, then you have to have a minimum of 2x of the return in terms of the reduction of the spend minimum. And you can take the time you want. It's okay, as long as it has an attractive payback period. It's all good within, let's just say, 1.5 to 2 years. But it has to have 2x of the investment as a return at some point in time. And that's something that we actually are mandating as part of this governance process. So long story short, we are not looking at just e-invoicing, but you're looking at more from a value stream from where the code begins, where the cash is getting collected. The entire value stream is getting connected through process improvement through lean, plus automation in the form of combination of traditional automation as well as AI automation, basically. And then monitoring of the investment to make sure that we are reaping the benefits on the investment as well. The most important thing that I did not say about this and the entire thing, this is going to have, from a longer term perspective, this is going to have significant change in people or the working population that are part of the process. The traditional way of doing things, who were left over in the company after we do this productivity improvements, these people will need to adapt to a new way of operating because the transactional mundane processing will be gone. Now you're looking at a smart way of working, and these people will need to really work through the AI infrastructure of how do you take advantage of that? And the skill sets need to be upgraded. And how do we train people and stuff like that that we will need to really focus on. And that is the most important piece in all of that. Now, there are two ways to look at it. You can actually bring in efficiency by reducing people in the traditional process and have them focus on something else in the form of redeploy them into something else. Thereby, you are reducing cost in one place, but you're also generating benefits elsewhere in the form of EBITDA improvements, in the form of growth and profitability. Or you can just simply do, all right, I need for my existing capacity of the P&L that I can generate on the revenue. This is the cost structure that I can afford. And this is the efficiency that I want to bring in to really support that kind of cost structure. This is the best I can do. That approach is also working as well. So we are having the blend of the two approaches depending on what portfolio we're looking at, because not all the portfolios are same. Every portfolio has its own nuances. So we are approaching that very differently based on that.
Hey, just a follow-up question for you, Raman, on that. In terms of a timing for this process and this transformation, what do you think is the realistic timing for seeing those significant improvements along the way? I know they're talking about from a return and the payback for the different investments that you're doing, but just from that overall transformation, and what does that timeline of that journey look like? And then also in terms of that adoption from the resources and seeing them really go through their own transformation to leverage this new process and efficiency. What do you think is a realistic timeline for that adoption for them?
Yeah, so the 4 areas of deal desk, project control in terms of how to set up the orders, invoicing, and cash flow. Those are the 4 pillars within the value stream that I'm looking at. We are looking at implementation of a total value stream roughly by the end of 2027, basically. By the time we will have the AI data platform ready and the basic AI infrastructure in the form of some agents that will improve the processes will be in place. Now, by 2027, it's more about investment and improving and defining the process. And I'm not really expecting any return at all during the period. It's just only focusing on the investment in the right place. Then 2028 is more of a transition and adoption of the new way of working things. And also, it will begin with a continuous evolution. So the continuous evolution will be having a heavy hand in the year 2028 in the form of investment, but then 2029 will still be there. And even in 2030, we'll have continuously be evolving. But the amount of money that we will be spending on continuous evolution will be a lot less in the outer years versus in 2028. So the bottom line, in a nutshell, if I put everything out, I am looking at a potential journey of 3 to 5 years easily between all the initiatives, including AI maturity. Now, we may be falling behind versus some of our peers in terms of how we approach it, but I'm really right now focused on only one thing, which is how do we get this right, thereby it can actually work. It does not have to be perfect. It can evolve, that's fine, but I want to get the infrastructure ready, thereby AI can actually create and add value for us, as opposed to we become jailbirds of AI, and then we cannot even get out of AI, and we have to keep spending more money, and we lose more EBITDA in the process. That's the place that I don't want to be in.
Thank you. That's great.
Dan, so we've had a miscellany of different ways people are approaching this. It is when it comes to thinking about measuring the full business cost, how might they go about that? How have you seen organizations go about that when it comes to maybe implementing sort of automations within this global e-invoicing space?
I mean, I think that this has been fantastic input from the team on it. I think in general, and maybe echoing a bit of what we're seeing as the group, I think that it's a balance between the cost of the change and how you're leaning in, but also what is the cost savings from this. The legacy systems and the legacy approach of handling global e-invoicing, so much of it was point-to-point connections. It's custom code between different ERPs that were not even built to be able to speak with a government platform in the first place. And it's being built up through just a variety of different sources and providers. And when you start looking at that ongoing management from multiple different providers, multiple different systems, and looking at streamlining that, cleaning up the data, standardizing the data, and where you are exchanging that from, I think that there's both hard costs and soft costs that organizations are looking at as part of that process. I think that as we start looking at this topic of AI and how that streamlines that process and how that can be managed, and whether it's a core competence, e-invoicing being a core competency of the business is, I mean, again, coming from an e-invoicing solution myself, right? But truly just trying to take the bias out of it. It's not going to be a core competency to the business, but having an automated, accurate flow so that you can be getting that out. That is a core piece to the business. That is a functionality that needs to be there. And I do think that, as we talked about earlier on, having this data come in and really standardizing it, whether it is with a third-party provider or you're doing it internally by leveraging AI, leveraging, whether it's the data lake approach or looking at some different layers in place, where you are creating really that two-stage mapping, that canonical data format. That is where you need to, I believe, go and continue to look at what can be done through partners or internally by leveraging AI to streamline it and really insulate your business from the complexity and the ongoing change from these different jurisdictions, and also insulate them from the complexity of the business. Acquisitions happen, divestitures happen. You want to be able to continue to streamline and consolidate your ERP systems across the globe. You want to be able to standardize your approach without having to go back to those jurisdictions all the time to be testing something or going back and forth. So I do think that looking at that more broadly is where I would tend to go personally, regardless of coming from the OneSource Pagero side of things. Truly just looking at I've got my connectivity layers, I've got my mapping, my translation, I've got my ERP, I've got my endpoints that I want to be exchanging this data with. Each of them are unique in what they're requiring in terms of format and how I'm exchanging that with them. If I can be standardizing where I am exchanging that from a single point, whether that is a provider or that is a automated solution that I have built and I have that visibility into, I think that is where I would go. And yes, it's a lift to figure things out on the front end of that. But if I'm truly trying to look at my costs there are both hard costs and soft costs related to that. And I believe that, as was discussed earlier, there is going to be a lot of efficiency that can be gained over the next 3 to 5 years, and resources are really going to see a time savings and be able to focus on more core competencies in the business, being deployed to other needed areas. But I do see that core piece of that standardized connection point, rather than multiple providers, multiple customized layers of code that are going to break as this point-to-point connection between systems where you are really handcuffed to it. I think that's a key area that I think many businesses are really focusing on right now to start finding that savings.
Dan, thanks. That's really helpful. And I suppose with 5 minutes left, I want to go around the room very quickly and just ask maybe if you could share what's that one priority that you and your teams might be looking at over the next 6 to 12 months. I know a couple of us have already shared some sort of longer term timelines here, but maybe something you could share with something you're excited about the next 6 to 12 months in this space that you could share with us. Maybe start with Noah. Maybe something you and your team's going to be working on looking at.
Automation, using AI automation to redirect our attention really quickly. Where do we need to look at? That's what we're super excited.
Fantastic. Automation, super excited as well. I love that positivity. Rahul, over at Novellus, then, when it comes to that priority, have you got something in mind that you could share with us?
Yeah, a few things that we're working on. Again, like I mentioned, very siloed in some instances. One key thing that we're trying to implement across board is ERS, electronic receipt settlement process, where we have that throughout majority of the of places, but some are not. So those kind of things that we're trying to make sure that we are aligning to the global rules. So part of that establishing rules is what is global and defining the layers of the regional and sometimes going down the chain, but creating the hierarchy. That's something that we're trying to figure out over the next 6 to 12 months.
Thank you, Rahul. Rudolph, over at Siemens?
Yeah, I believe the biggest unlocking factor will be kind of the reemergence of data availability. And I don't mean just simply the connection layer, but we've really driven it out into the organization. Data quality, data governance itself. A lot of the data will be cleaner and therefore usable. Data connection layer, and then the AI model. So from my perspective, it's the process AI, which will have a massive increase in jump. And very, very excited about this from a perspective of those will be the large-scale use cases. Raman, you said that as a CFO. The CFOs in the end care about, and I rightfully agree with that, return of invest. The moment they see this, as we look at actually multiplying factors, and most of those use cases should have a multiplying factor between 4 and 8. So whatever you put in and that's the test cases, test balloons. They should come to fruition in the next 6 to 12 months. I'm very, very excited about this because after that means open road.
Fantastic. Christina, over Workday.
Yeah. I don't know. Every day it's a different priority. But I will say that we did just wrap up a pretty large initiative where we've actually documented all of our processes through various avenues. We've mixture of some bots, data process finding, things like that. So we are looking at our procurement teams and how to automate a lot of their processes today. So we are, the next hopefully 2 to 3 weeks, we'll build an agent to go in and start to recommend potential automations and workflows. It's nice because we also just acquired a few companies to kind of help with some of the agentic solutions. So I'm excited about that because I think it's the first time that we can actually build an agent to tell us where we can build additional agents, right? So that's some fun stuff too, and find some areas that we won't be able to look at too, because it's a pretty large database that it has to go through to start to pinpoint some of those areas. So I'm excited about that project.
Fantastic. And before I hand back to Dan, we can very quickly go to Raman over at GE Vernova. What's that one thing you could share with us?
Sure, just very quickly, our high-level goal based on the strategy that we are supposed to outpace the market by significant more than at least. So we've been doing it for 3 years, and we've been 5 years, 6 months. So that's a lot. Within the larger team, what we are doing right now, we want to achieve a high level of confidence in the procurement. Right now, data is across 15 different product services and finance and in other places. We are not able to have economies of scale and also intelligent insights with the data take over. So our youth is extremely we cannot derive decisions. So to achieve a sustained double-digit growth number that outpaces, we need better. To achieve better unit economics, I need to have a solid data AI. So as we speak right now, for the next 24 weeks, we are actually setting up a new data AI with a better data. That's the foundation layer that we can focus on. One thing that we want to deliver in the next 6 months, and that will be involved in future agentic AI practices.
Fantastic. Thank you. Dan, maybe a few last final words before we let these guys go back to their day jobs.
I appreciate it, Dave. Thank you so much for hosting this and taking us all through the discussion here today. I appreciate everyone's time. This is very, very insightful, and you know, this was a great discussion to be part of. I think that, you know, some of the key things that I've been hearing today just were around the organization, the returns, the data that we were talking about, just some key themes, you know, within this. And I think that as I look at what I have my team working on within Thomson Reuters right now, and looking at, you know, the global indirect tax and global e-invoicing solutions, I think that what we are seeing and what we are hearing very much so aligns with what was being discussed here today, just around that standardization, looking at continuous improvement, and, you know, providing faster access to reliable and clean data here. So certainly welcome any conversations to expand some of these topics. I would say for each one of you, I'd love to reconnect with you outside of even any sort of a sales and Thomson Reuters focused discussion, but just to get some more one-on-one insight from you as to what you're working on, because each of you really shared some interesting points to me that you're facing in your business that I'd just love to hear a little bit more about. But no, appreciate everyone. Thank you so much for the time today, and we'll look forward to reconnecting with you soon, whether, you know, on another call like this, or hopefully in person at a conference or another event. But thank you all.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate your time. I'm sure the team from Expanse will be reaching out about any next steps that might be coming up. But have a great rest of your week and a great weekend, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Cheers all.